Good morning and welcome to Lucid MMA Picks. I'm your host, Paul, coming to you from the beautiful Pacific Northwest. Today is Saturday, September 16th, just a few hours away from the start of Noche UFC. Today, I'm just going to talk about three different fights and talk a little bit about last week. Let's go ahead and look at last week. Last week, I had three track bets on Bet MMA tips. I had a parlay with Cop and Allberg. So I risked 2 units to win 1.26. I had Ulberg versus Un Jung. That fight doesn't go to the distance, and oh my gosh, this is my track bet that I'm putting out here. These bets are the bets that I think I should be doing and limits that I should be doing. But this isn't my personal bet. My personal bet, I had gigantic bet for me for the fight doesn't go to the distance, and I almost ripped up that ticket when the final bell rang and it was going to the store cards as far as I could tell. I almost ripped up my tickets for my one of my biggest bets I've ever had. And thank God there was a tap that was seen by the ref outside with 3 seconds to go, I think it was, maybe 7 seconds to go. And so that one cashed. So 3.5 units to win one. And then, oh, was that I thought I had three. I did. And I had Miranda. At Miranda, at 1 unit bet to win 0.95. So I risked 6.5 units, won 3.21. One of the purposes of me doing this whole thing is to see my patterns, where I'm successful, where I'm not. I can already see, which I knew, is that I bet on favorites. I bet too heavily on a couple fights, and um, I think that pattern is going to get me in trouble in the long run. So that is something I'm going to be trying to avoid. I'm going to be trying to lean towards more towards evenly lined fights, which I did this week for one of them, and I'm also going to be trying to less units on some of the fights that don't go to decision because that's actually in my personal betting where I've gotten burned the most by far. Thank you, Trevor Peak. All right, but let's talk about today. We're going to start with the main event. We have Alexa Grasso, who is the new champion that took the belt from Valentino Shevchenko, and they're going to be meeting tonight. And the odds are pretty close. Did I have the odds up? I don't have the odds up for today. The odds are Shevchenko is actually the line is being steamed towards her. I believe it's minus 175 or so at MGM, which is where I have access to betting. And it's been this couple Twitter civil wars today, and this is one of them. I am leaning towards Shevchenko. I think that she was relatively in control of that fight. I think she is definitely getting a little bit older. She's getting a little bit slower. I mean, she's had so many MMA fights, so many kickboxing fights, and this has been her whole life for how long now? And a lot of longtime champions talk about just the weight of it and keeping up the intensity and all the issues that come with it. And when a champion loses their belt and gets an immediate rematch, it is rare that they get it back. Not rare, but much less often that they win than they actually lose the rematch. But today, I'm still going with Valentina. I still have faith that she is still close enough to peak condition, and Grasso does not have enough intensity herself or aggression or power to take over the fight um, tonight. I don't think. Okay, now usually if this is going to be one of my final cuts in a few weeks where I'm trying to do much better, I'd probably cut that, start over. But we're gonna keep going. We're gonna power through. So my pick for the main event is Valentina, and the best fight on the card, the Twitter Civil War for the week, is Kevin Holland versus JDM Jack Della Maddalena, and I am going with Kevin Holland in this. I believe if depending on how the fights are going when I'm at the sports book later today, if I'm doing well, I think I'm gonna put a big bet on the fight doesn't go to the decision on this one, which is lined I believe about minus 175 at the moment. Now Holland has almost never been finished. He's never been knocked down. JDM is not going to sub him. So it's a little odd that I'm going to be choosing fight doesn't go to decision because JDM is also super tough himself. He's been finished a couple times, but he's a very tough fighter. The reason I'm doing this and going to be choosing why I'm choosing Kevin Holland and choosing fight doesn't go to decision is because of Delman. I'll just say JDM's fight style. I think you have to take Kevin Holland's career kind of in two different categories. One where he's fighting at 170 and one where he's fighting at 185. His fights at 170, he's rarely had someone as aggressive as JDM. JDM is going to be coming in the pocket. He's going to be trying to cut down that distance. And Holland will take the outside and he'll throw those really nice kicks that he has. He'll throw that long jab, that long cross that he has. And he'll try to keep him out there. He'll try to damage him out there. But JDM's not going to stay there because he knows that he can win the battle. He doesn't have the physical gifts and tools that Kevin Holland does. So he has to get into the pocket. He has to get into boxing range. And when that happens, there's gonna be some car crashes. And between Holland's elbows and knees up the middle, and not that Kevin Holland is a wrestler or wants to wrestle, but when JDM comes in, I don't think Holland's gonna want to stay in that boxing range. So he's either gonna try to back off, or there's gonna be some natural clinches that occur. And Holland, I think, well, I know he's much bigger, and I think he's going to be much stronger than JDM. And I think he's going to get some takedowns. Again, he's not a forward aggressive wrestler because he wants to wrestle, but JDM's going to be crashing that pocket, getting into that range. And Kevin Holland is going to try to land some inside elbows, some knees up the middle. And when it comes to that natural clinch, I think he's going to get a couple maybe hip tosses or outside trips where he can land in half guard or land in side control. And when that happens, I think Holland on top, on the ground, is gonna have a huge advantage, and he can sub him, he can wear him out at the very least to knock him out later. I think there's a lot of different ways that this can go. Only one of them is good for JDM, and that's if it stays in boxing range and stays in boxing range for all 3 rounds. The chances of him knocking out Kevin Holland are pretty minimal in my view. So JDM by decision or Holland by decision, Holland by knockout, or Holland by sub based on how the fight's going to go. I'm taking Holland, and he's an underdog at minus 125. And my real life money might end up being on him too, but I am a big fan of JDM. Seeing him having trouble making weight and being the last one on the scale yesterday after traveling from Australia is also a part of my handicapping on this. It's never easy, and he's obviously having a tougher time than Holland is, who had to take a few-hour flight from Texas to get there. So my pick for the co-main event is Kevin Holland. This week I wanted to focus on tape study. I'm gonna over the upcoming weeks focus on my production and editing and having this actually look halfway decent and sound halfway decent. But this week I wanted to work on tape study. And I studied a few different fights, and the one I wanted to study the most is this one with Tracy Cortez against Jasmine Jasudavicius. Practiced that so many times. And the reason why is because this is one of the most closely lined fights on the whole card, and it's also this number two Twitter Twitter war of the week. And in taping this fight, I just was not impressed with Cortez in almost any realm except for her uh, double leg, her blast double. That is amazing. Her timing on that. She plays a lot of circling and countering and trying to bring her opponent in so she can counter. And she has such amazing timing on that double leg. I watched her last 3 fights, which is the last 4 years of her career. She's had 3 fights. Her inactivity is a problem. In those fights, I can count on one hand the amount of times that she's had um, a boxing flurry or powerful punches that hurt her opponent. She circles, she throws one punch and backs out. She circles, throws a kick, and back out. She is very, very, very low value, no power. So in order for her to win, she's going to have to win a decision um, where she's getting grappling exchanges where she's on top for the majority of the round, and the opponent doesn't do more damage than her. Judging these days, we all know about judging these days, but what's supposed to happen is even if she has 3 minutes of top control, if she does not land ground and pound, which she rarely does, then on the feet she has to also equal the damage. And I think on the feet, Jasmine is not super technical in her boxing or her kickboxing, but she is aggressive. She does go forward. She does throw flurries. She has hurt her last 2 opponents on the feet, and when she does, she has a killer instinct, and she goes forward, throws more, and gets them up against the cage, and that's when she gets a lot of her upper body takedowns. And so on the feet, for these 3 rounds, neither of these fighters have a lot of finishes on their record. Most likely going to decision. That line is very, very high. So if it's going to go to decision, and we're thinking about what's going to happen for 15 minutes on the feet, JJ is gonna be landing more powerful strikes. There's no question about that. She's gonna land more volume. I have no question about that. And then on the ground, now Cortez in her last 3 fights, she got a lot of top control time. The amount of time she even attempted to pass the full guard was minimal. And she rarely was able to keep it. She was able whenever she passed guard, it was almost always when the opponent was on the bottom, throwing up a triangle or throwing up an arm bar, and she'd be able to shuck the legs, and then she still couldn't even keep side control or keep control that way. She had to keep control from being in full guard. And she did land some elbows over the top, some punches over the top, but again, one at a time, very clearly was not damaging the opponent. And her last 3 opponents, they were not trying to get up. They were trying to throw some submissions up. They were trying to scramble a little, but they were just very happy to keep her in full guard because nothing was happening. So if that pattern continues today, then that's why I have JJ in this. I think she's going to land more volume on the feet, more power on the feet, and also she is a very strong grappler herself. She's not a classic wrestler, but she seems to be very instinctual about a lot of the positions. And if she can get up from bottom, because Tracy's going to take her down. If she's able to get up from bottom, it's I don't see any way that Cortez can win this fight. So I do have my personal money on JJ, and I do have my track bets this week on JJ. So to close out the video, we're going to go over my track bets for this week. So I do have 2 straight bets. First one is on Roman Kopylov. I do have a 3-unit bet on him. And then for Jasmine Jusudavicius, I do have a 2-unit bet on her that are going to be my track bets this week from MGM. And this morning, I went ahead and put in one parlay. Parlay is going to be Shevchenko and Zellhuber, and that's going to be 1.5 units I'm risking on that. I believe I'm gonna probably and I do have my 1, 2, 3. I have my 4th track bet. So I have 4 track bets today. The 4th track bet is Fremd and Kopylov, who I do have the bet on Kopylov. That fight doesn't go the distance. Um, Fremd being able to win a decision in this would mean that he would have to get some takedowns, be successful to be on top, and be able to hold Kopylov down for a very long time. And after moving to Dagestan and even seeing his other defensive grappling and defensive wrestling in his other matches. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Kopylov is going to win this fight. I think it's going to be basically a kickboxing match. And even though Fremd is a very, very big fighter and very competent everywhere, Kopylov is just sharp on the feet. He has power on the feet, and he goes for the finish. And if there's any tiredness from Fremd or if Fremd gets hurt, Kopylov is going to attempt to finish this in any way he can. And he might even get some offensive wrestling himself in this for the second and third round. So I have a 2-unit bet. The fight doesn't go the distance for Kopylov and Fremd. So those are my 3 bets. This was my show. These are my 3 breakdowns. I'm gonna go over this video, gonna make it look better, gonna make it sound better, and I can't wait to come back to you next week. Have fun at the fights tonight. Good luck, everyone.